You know what causes a lot of blue light? Cell phones. Well, TVs too, but cell phones do, and kids are always on their cell phones. So I don't know, I was listening to this health specialist who said, if you really want to wake up in the morning, expose yourself to blue light. Let the sunlight, let the sunrise get in your face, because that has blue light to it, and it wakes you up. I don't know if that's true, but I depended upon coffee. So anyhow, that's kind of interesting. So remember, red gives you an advantage that you seem more aggressive in sports, but oddly enough, switching sports from blue or white, it gives you no advantage. So I just think that's kind of interesting. Red has an effect. Blue, not really. Blue symbolizes safety to children. And here's an interesting, I mentioned that. Blue signifies safety to children. I thought it was interesting. By quote unquote, a significant margin, children always perceive you as more gentle, kind, and approachable when you're wearing blue. So the UN colors are light blue with white because that most symbolizes peace. So this odd study is that what color, they did this, what color causes people to be the most creative? Blue. After that, green. Socially, blue symbolizes openness and friendliness. Therapeutically, color blue makes you more productive. So just psychologically, I think that's interesting. So what does blue mean in the Bible? So in the, I forgot to, in the Bible, in the 15 chapters of Numbers, it denotes that in your prayer shawls, they would have wore prayer shawls, right? Then they would have had tassels on them. The tassels are called wings. And then one thread of the tassel has to be blue. So there's this strange prophecy about the blue thread. So in Matthew, when the woman who's issuing blood for 12 years says, I'll be whole again if I can only touch the hem of his garment. Actually, what the Greek says is, if I could touch his wings. And by wings, it doesn't mean like a bird's wings. It refers to the tassel, but it specifically refers to that blue thread in the tassel. And so the prophecy, under the wings of the Messiah, you'll find healing. That's why she touches the blue thread. Or in the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark and the vessels, in the Old Testament, the vessels are to be made out of pure gold, beaten gold. That's the ark and the vessels. But when they move the tabernacle or the vessels, because remember, they had that meeting tent that moved with the people, God commands them to cover it with the color blue. So the colors for the Ark of the Covenant would have actually been gold and then covered with blue. So why is Mary's colors known as blue and gold? Because when Mary is painted in blue and gold, the gold means, she's the new ark that carried Christ. And she's wearing blue because the ark is covered with blue when it travels. Why are Notre Dame's colors? Notre Dame means Our Lady. What color is Notre Dame's colors? It symbolizes the ark. Now, in the Bible, blue, if you're wondering, symbolizes transcendence. So the sky is blue, right? Sky is blue, so blue symbolizes the heavens. Gold is going to be holiness, but blue symbolizes heavens. So, that's the wrong thing. You'll notice Mary and Jesus are covered in blue. Now, I just want to do a kind of a famous one. So this is Our Lady of Guadalupe. Now, technically, she's not wearing blue. She's wearing turquoise. But in the Aztec culture, only the gods could wear turquoise. So she's wearing turquoise, right? So does that mean that she's a god? No, because what is she wearing underneath the turquoise? Red. What does red symbolize? Well, sacrifice, but humanity. So she's human. This is, oddly enough, red for the Aztecs means the same thing. She's human, but she's wrapped in the divine. Does that make sense? So that's why Mary sometimes is red and blue. So we have all these pictures of Mary, red and blue. Oops, that's a color test. Went the wrong way. Sorry. So Mary is in red and blue, right? So is Jesus in red and blue. Why is Jesus and Mary pictured in red and blue? Well, blue symbolizes sky, right? But then, as you guys know, God also commands, God really seems to care about colors because he demands that you wear certain colors. Like the high priest would wear this multicolored robe. But God gives instructions for the building of the tabernacle, and that the same three colors have to be used in the same order for the veil. And it's always blue, purple, scarlet. Blue, purple, scarlet. It always appears in the same. So why does the veil of the Holy of Holies have to have blue, purple, and red? Why? Well, anybody want to guess? Because I kind of gave it away. Why would the temple have to have blue and red and purple? Pretty good. Wow. From somebody from Grangeville was able to get that. So you're from Grangeville, right? Oh, wow, Cottonwood. So the temple, God commands it for just what he said. The temple is this place of joining between heaven and earth. The word Adam, the root word is the color red, right? Red symbolizes humanity. Blue symbolizes the heavens. Does that make sense? And what is purple? Well, that does mean royalty to the Romans. That is true. But purple, if you're a Hebrew, purple is red and blue, right? So the temple is, remember, blue is mentioned first. Blue symbolizes heaven. Red, earth or humanity. The temple is a place where heaven and earth meet. Does that make sense? And what do you get with red and purple? Sorry, red and blue? Purple. So it symbolizes this place where God and humanity meet. So red, the color of humanity. It actually says scarlet because scarlet means also is a symbol of sin, but we're fallen. So purple is a mix. Now, so it's just joining. So I love that. So, did I touch that? No. So here are the temple veil would have been. Sorry, I think I messed up. Oh, is that another one? No, that's another. So the temple veil was supposed to be red, blue, and purple. So here's like one illustration I found that I thought was interesting. It's the red and the blue, but it's missing the purple. So I was like, that's not correct. This is a nice one. It has the blue, and it has, also the temple veil would have had dozens and dozens of these angels on them. So they got that, but they missed the red and the purple. This one has the red, purple, and blue, but it's missing the angels. Does that make any sense? So the only reason I'm showing this is that, wow, God really seems to care about this. So if you notice, why does Jesus and Mary wear blue and red? It's a meeting place between God and humanity. Mary wouldn't have wore blue in her lifetime. Blue is a very expensive color. She, historically at her time period, she most likely would have worn black. Most common color, most women wore it, and Mary was poor. She couldn't afford royal colors. We put her in that as a way of biblically saying, oh, Mary's was a place where heaven and earth meet. Christ is the altar of heaven and earth. So that's why, like, Christ is blue, heaven. That's red. The thing on his shoulder, that's a priestly stole. He's the high priest. Don't know what that is. I had another one, but somebody made it disappear. So purple, if you're Hebrew, is this mix between heaven and earth. Purple for Romans Only Roman aristocracy could wear purple. So when the soldiers beat up Christ, then put him in purple, if you're Hebrew, you'd read it, oh, he's the temple. He's red, he's bleeding, he's bruised, purple, blue, and he's wearing purple. It's saying he's the temple. Does that make sense? If you're Roman, the soldiers, they did it as this political mocking that a king wears purple. Does that make sense? So even like in the Middle Ages, Roman society, even in the Middle Ages, and I forget what they are, based on your social class, you could or could not wear certain colors. Isn't that kind of amazing? Like today, you can wear whatever color you want. But colors had that. So only the aristocracy could wear purple. So they're kind of mocking Jesus. So I love that. So when I pray, like I use the color blue. Blessed are the peacemakers. I say one Hail Mary for all the Beatitudes. When I come to blessed are the peacemakers, it's a light blue. Knowledge is a gift, one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. I always use dark blue for that. Blessed are the meek. I use royal blue. So blue is a symbol of transcendence, but think of it. It's blue because the blue symbolizes sky. Sky is heavens, so it's a meeting place between heaven and earth. Too confusing, too boring? Okay. Now, Mary comes in other colors too. We paint her in white and blue and gold and white and gold. That symbolizes something too. I'm not going to tell you now. But I will. Okay, any questions before we move on? Wait, is it 10:30 or is it 9:30? Oh. Scared me there for a second. Oh, yes. I think that was the British soldiers. I can't remember. The red coats. And I think they wore it because if you got shot, it wouldn't show the blood, is what I heard. I don't know. That's what I was told. What's that? Okay, the Italians said they're laying on the ground. That's a dead giveaway. But, the Italians, they're quick. They know this kind of stuff. Okay, finish. Do one more. Okay, so black and white. There's this weird thing that was discovered in the Armenian earthquake. So Armenia had this terrible earthquake. 50,000 people died. 50,000 people died. Hundreds of children were left without parents. They had to open up these centers for all these kind of not abandoned or whatever, orphan children. And then when they have all these children together, they gave them, crayons to color with. And the psychologist noted that none of the children used color. They only colored in black and white. Isn't that kind of interesting? So they notice this, and they also notice that only when the children start to go through the mourning process do they start to use colors. But like if they drew the sun was always black. And if you took away the black crayon or the white, they simply refused to color. They just didn't know what to do. They could only color when they're in trauma in black and white. And only as they're coming out of the depression can they use it. Oddly enough, likewise, they did the study with people who are prone to suicide. They see less vivid color. So I think that's kind of interesting. Or so they've done the study with children who have gone through trauma. Children who are in trauma or going through some sort of trauma, they don't use colors. So anybody a teacher? If you ever have a child who refuses to color, that's a really bad psychological indicator. Does that make sense? It means they're going through trauma. So they found this odd thing that color seems to be drained out of us when we're going through trauma. So that's your world goes to black and white. Now, did this study with the color black that people will play, they say, people will play sports more aggressively in black than white. So then they did a study with this NFL penalties, and yeah, you get like 17 more penalties if you're wearing black. Hockey teams get more penalties if you're wearing black. But here's the question. Does black cause the players to be more aggressive, or do referees perceive that those dressed in black are being more aggressive in breaking the rules? That most evidence is it's just that they're perceived to be more aggressive, not that they are more aggressive. Does that make sense? Or they did this study with non-sports fans judging uniforms, and once again, non-sports people always think sports teams in black seem more aggressive. And then they did this, it's a rather complicated psychological study where there's two types of games. And they expose, but there are two types of games. And one game, they just makes them sound more aggressive, like, I don't know, bloody let's kill 'em video game, versus the other sounding one gave a passive name like catching rainbows or something. And then they did this test that before you played the game, you had to pick out, put on a jersey, either black or white. And those who wanted to play the aggressive game picked the black jerseys. Those who wanted to play the more passive game chose white. I just think it's kind of interesting. And children, even children, another psychological experiment. They gave just shapes to children, and the more jagged the shape, they'd say, now, what color would that shape be? And would it be black or white? If it's jagged, they always say black. If it's curved, like, soft curves, they'd say white. Isn't that kind of interesting? So, like, black and white has this odd effect. And if somebody, so anyhow, the point being is that it has this effect where black has this polarizing effect. If you're wearing black, you come off being perceived as more aggressive, more judgmental, evokes more fear. That's why political ads are always filmed in black and white. And if you're in a legal mediation, black and white clothing makes you appear harder to negotiate with. That's why I always wear black. No, but they did this study. Those who wear black appear to be more inflexible and more morally rigid. People who wear white are perceived as more trustworthy and open. And you have to think, well, if that's true, why would that be? I have no idea. But the theory is part of evolution, of nocturnal fears with night. At night, with blackness, I guess we're prone to more fear. So I just think that's kind of interesting. But the odd part about this inconsistency is that white makes you look more trusting, black more dominant, but as people age, they choose more and more the color black, except the least threatening people are usually the elderly, and yet they choose the color black. I don't know why, but I just wear it because it's a thinning color. What's that? I like to be like a New Yorker. But I do think it's kind of interesting. Black and white seems to give the perception of being polarized. Just one more thing, shading. People in darker shades look more ominous. I don't know why. But, and I'm just going to cover this briefly because coming to the end, I want to hold this class on what's called lunar versus solar spirituality. I know it sounds kind of strange, but it's a great class. There's a great concept in the Bible. And the Bible is lunar spirituality is things that happen at night in the dark. Solar spirituality is things that happen in the day. And solar spirituality is when you can see everything. Everything's open, clear. Does that make any sense? So, like the Ten Commandments, that's a solar spirituality. You know exactly the order, A, B, C, D. Does that make sense? The Catechism is solar spirituality. You know exactly what to do. And a lot of people in life have what's called a solar spirituality. I know all your answers. That's a solar spirituality. You can see by the sunlight. Everything's clear. Lunar spirituality is the opposite. Lunar spirituality is when you have no idea. When everything's fallen apart and you have no idea, but all you can do is trust. So this sounds kind of strange. Certain things happen in the daytime in the Bible. Other things happen at night. But the most sacred things happen at night. When does a bread of life come down in the Old Testament? At night. It's revealed in the morning, but it falls at the night. When is somebody always called by God? At night. All the great sacred events that move people, that change their life and turn them upside down, all the callings happen at night. Solar spirituality is when you get answers. In the dark is where you start asking. But asking the question actually has more profound effect on whatever biblical character you're talking about. So there's a difference between solar spirituality and lunar spirituality. And the difference is this. God forbid you lose a child. And I've had this. You lose a child, you're in darkness. You just don't know what, where, and why, and what to do. Then you get somebody with solar spirituality who has all the answers. I know it all. Does that mean this is what you need to do? Job has a lunar spirituality. He has no idea other than to trust God. And his three friends come, and they have all the answers. That's a solar spirituality. Does that make sense? So going back to this, I do find that kind of interesting. We can have a whole class on that's one of the fun classes. That, wow, light and dark play a big theme in the Bible. So going back to white and black. So black, it could mean evil, but it doesn't necessarily. This sounds kind of strange. There's two terms for darkness in Hebrew. One can mean evil, dark in the sense of evil, but there's also another term for a sacred darkness. Isn't that interesting? A sacred darkness where your answers won't work anymore. Moses enters the sacred darkness. So just with the color black, people perceive it as more dangerous. And the psychologists think, well, maybe black has that effect because evolutionarily wise, it was the dark that we're afraid of. But the dark is where the most amount of change happens as well. So black symbolizes death. If you're looking at icons, black symbolizes death or mystery. White symbolizes purity. So the high priest, when his undergarment, his priestly robe, is this white linen. You have to say, I didn't really know what white linen was. But I guess linen's not cotton, but it's supposed to be this what's that? Oh, okay. It's flack, he said. I don't know what that means. Yeah. Let me finish the white priestly robes, but that's interesting. So the priest's vestment is white, but it's supposed to be this really light linen, breathable. And the reason why is white symbolizes purity. So when he walks in the Holy of Holies, he's wearing this white linen, meaning purity. It's also what you would get married in. So the high priest, when he sacrifices and when you get married, so in the Bible, when you get washed by the blood of the Lamb, you put on a white alb afterwards. So everybody who's been baptized, my garment under my robes will always be white. It's white because the alb is, baptism robes, because you've been pure. When Mary wears white and blue, the white would symbolize her purity, the Immaculate Conception. Blue wrapped in the heavens. Does that make sense? So white means purity. Now, to answer your question, what effect would that have on the color of your skin? Believe it or not, that doesn't come up in the Bible. Because, like, a lot of times you could think, well, like, that doesn't come up in the Bible, but it's part of our history. Like, we had, this is god-awful, but, I mean, it's kind of pretty, but it's god-awful in the modern sense. We had this statue of St. Michael, and with his wings, that holy apostle, with wings and the sword, and he's stepping on Satan. Did you ever see that statue? So it was only about this tall, but it was really beautiful. But the only problem is, Michael was blonde and blue-eyed, and Satan looked like a black guy. So, like, you see that, and you're like, oh, that does not play in modern terms. Does that make sense? So to make a joke out of it, I told the school, St. Ignatius, the principal, I said, oh, yeah, we're going to put that in the entranceway. And she said, please don't. Please don't. I was joking. But, like, oh, like, you look at that, and you think, But I don't, like, the skin tone in the Bible doesn't play as evil versus good. Does that make sense? So like, that plays in modern culture. The lighter your skin, like, it sounds strange. It's all over. I know, like, I was surprised when I was in the seminary that a friend of mine was telling me that his grandmother really liked one child because it was a lighter skin, they're Mexican, than the other one. Isn't that kind of bizarre? I thought that was, like, that's our modern cultural thing. It doesn't seem part of the ancient culture. Like Abraham's, Sarah, Abraham, and what was Sarah's mistress who had Esau? Not Esau. Starts with an R. Not Rachel. Hagar, thank you. Oh, doesn't even start with an R. It does say Hagar is dark-skinned, but that does, it's not an evil connotation. So that seems to be a more modern thing. So skin color is not really relatable in the Bible. Does that answer your question? But I do love that I do love that there's a Hebrew word for sacred darkness. So darkness itself is not considered evil, although sometimes it is. I don't know, but I would guess it has, don't know, but I would guess it has something to do. Mary appears in the color schemes that make sense to those people. So we're going to have to find a Croatian and ask. But, yeah, ask Gary. Don't know her. It is true that if you study biblical events, the most sacred, life-changing events always happen at night in the dark. So I love the fact that there is a Hebrew word for that sacred darkness, where you don't have any answers. So, yeah, I love that solar versus lunar spirituality. All right, it's 10 o'clock, just a little intro. So if you look at something, you can say, oh, you know why it's red and blue. You know why it's white and gold. Blue and gold. So next week we'll just finish up with the remaining colors. So I do have 5 minutes. Does this class make sense on the theology of colors? Okay. Well, I'll see you next week, and we'll have a sign up for a vote.